Hi, I am Tammy and I am Meditating Medium. We are going to talk today about money. This is something that I am personally dealing with, working through, and being very honest about in my own life. So, as I promised you before, you're going to get it as I get it, and I hope that this video helps you. It's about attracting money. It's about some of the boundaries and some of the things that we put on money. It's how we look at it. It's what things we think about it subconsciously. If you can get to the subconscious level of things and realize what it is that you are holding on to, then it will dissipate as soon as you start to work through it. You have to breathe that in. You have to admit that you have these feelings. Then you have to work through them. And I've had some wonderful experiences lately. Well, I would say probably over the last 11 or 12 years or so, I've had wonderful experiences with money, the lack of, the non belief in, as well as amazingly having things just presented and given to me because I believe. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and I want to start by sharing a story with you. When I was single, and I was single for 8 years before I married my husband, who we will be married 5 years this Thursday. Congrats to us. And before I met him, I was dating this guy that was a multi-millionaire. In the very first dinner date that we had, he was very honest and open and a wonderful conversationalist. And as I was speaking to him about having friends, I have friends who are very poor. I have friends who are wealthy. I am not a respecter of persons. I don't look at them any differently. Except that I realized that I had a thing about money when I told this guy what I said to him. We were sitting at dinner and I was telling him about one of my friends who has this very compelling story, how he was absolutely homeless and living on the street in a cardboard box when he was about 15, 16 years old. He was kicked out of his mother's house because she was interested in men and the other man in her life did not like her son. He ended up making his own way, believing in himself, going to college, graduating, owning a business, and then selling it for about $52 million. So he and I got close and we were having this conversation about what it's like to live in that place, to have that much money, to go from real poverty that most of us will probably never understand, to get to the place to where you are a multimillionaire. He talked about what it's like to be there, to not know whether or not you could trust people, to not know what people's motives are when they come to see you or if they want to be your friend or whatever. And I was sharing this kind of information with the guy that I went on a dinner date with. And then when I finished telling him about my friend, I said to him, I want you to know that you being a multimillionaire is not something that turns me on. It's something that actually concerns me. And what I need to know is whether or not you hurt someone to get it, and if it changed you dramatically when you did become a millionaire overnight, because I kind of knew his story and his company went public, and that's how he and I think 5 or 6 others became multimillionaires overnight. He ended up telling me that that was actually very refreshing and that he had never heard that story before. Now I am understanding that that feeling that I had of concern about him being a multimillionaire, whether or not he hurt something, was something that had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with me. And that I was basically somewhat afraid of money. And really, it has taken me until this morning and working through a book that I would recommend to you from Joe Vitale, who is absolutely the bomb, called Attract Money Now. If you will go to his site, he is offering this book for free as a download. I think it's about 157, 160 something pages. Please go get it and start working through it. This has been a process of mine of working through money for years and years and years. And let me tell you a little bit about this story. I lived in a very modest home when I was growing up. We were constantly worrying about money. And I've learned that some of the things that you pick up about money and your belief or faith therein or anything about it is actually contributed to the environment around you when you're growing up. When you are growing up, hearing your parents say, when you were put in the hospital, we don't know how we're going to pay for her hospital bills, you feel guilt. You feel condemnation. You feel that you have hurt somebody because of money. There were beliefs and things that happened in my childhood that caused me to feel that I did not deserve having money. And so, therefore, when I was in my marriage that I spoke about before, where I got divorced, things were tight. Things were really hard and difficult and demanding. And every time we turned around, a car was tearing up, a washing machine, appliances were tearing up. Things were constantly happening, and there never seemed to be enough money. And then after I divorced, during my divorce, I told my attorney that I did not want alimony. And the reason that I didn't want it is because I inherently knew deep down that I was either going to be homeless or I was going to have to make it on my own. And I did not want anybody else getting credit for what I did with my life. I didn't want anybody else saying, I helped her to get there. I did this by myself. And I was putting myself in a very precarious position. It's really quite funny now because my attorney said that I was the very first person to not ask for alimony, but I knew that I would struggle to get it from him anyway because there was such hatred that had infiltrated his very being about me leaving him. And I did not want to burden him, there we go again, with the burdening of money. And I did not want to harm myself by letting anybody else take credit. So I ended up kind of searching around. I sold the marital home. That was what I got in the divorce settlement. I sold it, had a little bit to live on. I was very depressed because I did not trust myself. I had done some things before the divorce, during the divorce, and was feeling like I just could not trust myself at all. I questioned every move I made. I questioned every decision that I made. I wasn't sure of who I was. And yet, there was a calmness in me that I started realizing nothing's breaking, nothing's tearing up, my car is functioning, everything is okay. I am being taken care of. And I started to change my mindset about money, about thinking about it. Although it's not until this morning that I really realized the full effect. And like I say, it's a process in your growth of how you get to where you get and how much you learn along the way. I understood inherently that I could make it if I really wanted to. And I ended up, through a series of events and people talking to me, I've learned that when people mention things to me, if I get it in 3 different people saying it, I should pay attention. It's whether a book is mentioned or something that I need to consider. And I had friends and family telling me, why don't you run your own business? I don't understand. You have this creative talent of being able to sew and make window treatments and make slipcovers and do all of these things. You're a seamstress. Why would you not open a business and sew for people? And I had been doing that some before the marriage ended anyway. So I want to tell you that I ended up opening up that business and I was making really good money and it was a really good feeling. But there were still a lot of fears attached to it for me. So I'm going to talk to you about something that has happened recently in all of the spiritual readings that I've been getting over the last few years, as well as coming home from France and having a customs agent tell me certain things about money and where I'm going to be in the future and how much money is going to be coming to me and prosperity cards and all these things that these spiritual teachers have been giving me and telling me about myself. I couldn't get it. I couldn't buy into it. And now I realize why. In reading this book, Attract Money Now, I am starting to understand that I absolutely have to be honest with myself and work through what my hindrances, what my inner beliefs are about money. And if I work through those things, money is just going to flow. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very comfortable. I'm not lacking in anything. I am not wealthy by any stretch of the word, but I know what it is that I'm supposed to be doing with money. And yet, every single time that I have tried to get into a position professionally to make this work, I've had world famous artists asking to take me to Sri Lanka with them. I've had furniture companies that want to develop and have muralists travel around the United States and paint for them. All of these things never came to fruition. It wasn't because of arguments. It wasn't because anything negative happened. They just fell through my hands like sand. It was like I could feel it, taste it, sense it, know that it was there, but I could not break the barrier to get through. This morning I had to get very honest with myself, and one of the first things that Joe Vitale asks you to do is to be honest about what your belief system is about money. In doing that, I realized that I have a fear about it. I have a fear about it controlling me. I have a fear of hurting somebody. Or I should say, I had fears until this morning. Even though I have been able to attract, I get to a certain point and then I'm stuck and I can't figure out why I seem to be stuck in the mud. I'm going to start this video with part 2. This will be part 1, and I will see you in a moment.